I think it's safe to say that this year has been a lot for everybody. Due to this current political and social climate, as well as, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic that started in March, we have all had a lot of time with our homes, with the people we live with, and of course, with ourselves. And depending on your situation, this has been a really, really hard time. I know for me personally, I lost a job, gained a job, lost a roommate, and gained a significant amount of quarantine weight. If there is anything positive that I can squeeze out of this year, though, it's that all of this has also given me a lot of space for self-reflection, which I see as ultimately a positive thing. So by taking a look at the changes in my job, my living situation, as well as my milestone birthday this year, I will self-reflect on all the things that I have learned about me and the people around me during 2020. When everything fell apart in March, effectively, classes, of course, were the first thing to go. For all of us students, learning how to smash a curriculum into what was previously in person and online learning format, as well as deal with the stress of the pandemic, it was a lot. And it was a lot for professors and parents and younger students as well. This was not unique to me, and neither were the changes in my job, really. A lot of people faced uncertainty, and I worked at the university box office, selling tickets to things like plays and sporting games and any concerts that we may have held in the various places on campus. And of course, during this kind of pandemic, giant in-person concerts and things were not really safe or popular. So after a little while of only answering refund calls and asks about different dates and postponements and cancellations, there really wasn't much work to do in the box office. And what there was to do, the university didn't want us to be unsafe and breathing on each other in an office setting, so my job was indefinitely put on hold, which meant that the secure job for the summer that I thought that I had was gone, and I had to go on a job search during all of these changes. A lot of people were in this situation. Thankfully, after about a month or two of scrolling through Indeed.com and applying to every job that I could find, knowing that it was unlikely that I would get one since everyone was in the same boat as me, I finally got a job at European Cafe downtown Springfield. And now, since things are booting back up, I'm having to learn how to juggle the box office job, since we have football games and things now, as well as that job and a full-time class schedule. A lot of people live in this situation, but this is something I've not had to confront before, so it's been a very difficult change, and keeping up with everything, I haven't been entirely the best at. What I've learned from this situation is that, one, I hate food service. I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but my previous two jobs were also making coffee and food, and when I finally got an office job, I was thrilled because I didn't think I would have to do it anymore, but obviously not a lot of people anticipated something like this. I will say, though, that learning how to deal with the uncertainty of not having a job was an eye-opener for me. I've been working since I was legally allowed to work, and this is the first time that I've not known where my rent or grocery money was going to come from. Obviously, saying this is coming from a place of privilege, which is something I learned. I learned to be grateful for my job, even though it's not my favorite, because I know a lot of people are struggling with unemployment right now during the pandemic and have in the past. I'm grateful to be able to have only waited a month or two to get a job. And learning to deal with all these conflicting emotions has made me grateful for at least being able to stand in this apartment and give this speech right now. But not only were concrete things like my schedule and job affected by this, so were my relationships, as were many people's. Living in close quarters like my tiny apartment with my significant other, who I've been living with since the end of my sophomore year, has been a learning experience. We love each other very much, but being in close quarters, both of us being out of work for the beginning of this because we both worked for the university, there was a lot of conflict, tension, and confusion in these little walls. So obviously that led to stress and arguments. That being said, though, I'm so grateful to be in the living situation I'm in. I don't think I could have held all the stress in me and dealt with it without him by my side and us being able to comfort each other and support each other through a time like this. I really don't know where I'd be now without him. That being said though, not all of the things I learned about relationships were positive like that. I also had a third roommate who lived with us, and like I said before, you learn a lot about people in this kind of small apartment situation during traumatic situations. And not everything that you learned will be positive. There was also a lot of conflict and tension, and we ultimately decided that it was best for everyone's mental health if he move out and we get a little bit of space. From all of that, I learned that it is really important to prioritize the healthy relationships, give nurture and care to them, and now I know that those healthy relationships will come out stronger after a situation like this. In addition to that, you also have to learn, what I have learned, is that it is okay, and not only okay, but good and healthy to cut people out if they're not beneficial to you in this type of situation. Nobody could have anticipated it, and who knows where I'd be had it not happened. But ultimately, the smartest decision for everyone was to get some space. And I learned that that was okay. And of course, because this is a birthday speech, it feels fitting to end on my weirdest birthday yet. I haven't always had great luck with birthdays. It typically falls around a really stressful time in the school year and hard time to plan things, but I will say that 2020 takes the cake for the worst year to have a 21st birthday that I've known of. Of course, I couldn't go out. The idea of sitting in a sweaty bar, swapping drinks with people and spit and taking off our masks and breathing on one another did not sound like a good idea given the current situation. So, it was an at-home birthday. But also, for this time, for whatever reason, my wallet went missing. So I didn't even have my license to make my honorary stroll to Brown Derby and buy myself my first legal drink. My significant other, being over 21 at the time, obviously made it the best that it could be by getting me drinks and dinner and sitting in our living room and trying to make the best of it. But being somebody who is very involved in national politics, keeping informed with that, and actually being involved in local politics, it was also the day that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, September 18th. I will say that put a damper on the evening, and I really didn't feel like taking celebratory shots when I knew that the outcome of this would have really serious implications for the politics and the election going forward in our country. What I learned from that weird time is that right now is not the time to live conventionally. My picturesque 21st birthday was just not going to happen this year. And even though I can mourn it and be sad about it, I just have to forge ahead. That being said, I will definitely, after I get the vaccine, live life to the fullest in Springfield before I move out of here at the end of college. Hopefully, safely, but I will not stick to my homebody ways after I'm able to get out of the house again. The trivial things aside, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death on my birthday also made me reflect on how serious the end of this year is going to be. The elections are happening now, and all the implications that that will hold for not only my generation, but the generations to come, especially with a lifetime appointment that may be filled by her passing, is something I had to reckon with and realize that the small things, although they're important to me, aren't really what's at stake during a year like this. But this year is not over. We are still living in the pandemic, and we are currently having elections that will culminate in a decision around the end of November. This will definitely be a year to remember, even though it will not be for the best of reasons. I'm hoping that when I'm old and talking to my grandkids or something, that I can use this year as like my uphill both ways type of old person story and share my wisdom. But I will also share my wisdom about how it feels to enter a very confusing and scary time, and hopefully come out the other end a much better and wiser person. There are still 2.5 months left of this year, and if I've learned anything, it's that I know I still have a lot left to learn.